If you've seen the headline going around that Georgia is one of the 10 worst states to live in, and you're sitting there wondering, wait, did I just move to the wrong place? Or should I take Georgia off of my list of potential places to move to? You're not alone. I had people texting me about this. And I'll be honest, it had me questioning my life choices for a second. So here's a short answer, and then I'll actually unpack it. This is rage bait. Georgia is not one of the worst places to live, but there was an actual study behind that headline. And for this video, I'll uncover with you what it actually says, the fair parts and the misleading parts. I'm going to give you the real lived-in version here, not a polished, everything's perfect in Georgia real estate pitch. I'll give you the honest one. I grew up in Cobb County. I've moved 4 times around North Metro Atlanta, and I've settled up here in Gwinnett County with my family. So this is my home. My kids go to school here, my everyday life that we're talking about. So let's get into it. Hey, I'm Sarah. Here I talk about all things living in North Metro Atlanta. If you're new here, I hope you'll grab a snack and hang out with me for a little bit. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe. Let's be friends. And if you're one of my regulars, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Tell me in the comments where you're actually watching from. So back to our topic today. Let's start with where this rage bait headline even came from, because context is everything. This ranking came from CNBC. Every year they do this big study called America's Top States for Business. This was their 20th year, and it's actually a serious piece of work. They score all 50 states across something like 138 different metrics. So it's not some random blog post, it is a real study. And in 2026, Georgia landed near the bottom of their worst states to live in list, 5th from the bottom. We scored 1472 out of a possible 2,500. We got an F. But here's the part that the headline totally overlooks. The F wasn't for everything. It was for one category that CNBC calls the quality of life. But when you look under the hood, it's mostly about state policy, things like worker protections, access to health care, and inclusiveness laws. On those specific measures, Georgia scored low, and that's what pulled our grade down. I'm not saying those things don't matter, but my problem with the headline, though, is when you take a state that scored low on a handful of policy measures and stamp it as one of the worst places to live, that tells you almost nothing about what your random Tuesday would feel like. Your commute, your kid's school, your grocery bill, whether you like your street and the people who live on it. And that's the stuff that most of you guys are really asking when you're thinking about moving somewhere. So let's talk about that. Here's the thing that jumped out to me. In that same CNBC study, the one that handed us that beautiful F, Georgia also pulled some of the highest marks in the country in other categories. An A- on infrastructure, which kind of surprises me. An A- on access to capital. This is one of the strongest states in the nation for jobs, for business, for actually getting things built. That is the engine that's bringing tens of thousands of people and hundreds of companies here every single year. And if you step back and look at other rankings, because no single study is going to tell you the whole truth, the picture shifts again. U.S. News and World Report, which a lot of people treat as the gold standard, puts Georgia at 22nd overall, right in the middle of the pack. It's not top 10, but nowhere near worst in America either. So which is it? Worst state or middle of the pack? And the honest answer is, it completely depends on what somebody decided to measure. That's the whole game with rankings. One person picks what counts and how much it counts. Change the recipe, change the result. And here's a number that cuts through all of it for me. If Georgia were really one of the worst places to live in America, people would be leaving, and they're actually doing the opposite. They keep coming. I'll even give you a real example. Jackson County, so that's Jefferson, Braselton, Hoschton, it's that whole stretch up Interstate 85, was just named the fastest growing micro area in the entire United States. Not just in Georgia, in the whole country. It grew more than 5% in a single year, and it's closing in on 100,000 people. Now, you're not gonna get numbers like that By being a miserable place to live, people vote with their moving trucks. And when I ask the families I'm working with why they're coming, I hear the same handful of things over and over. The schools, the cost of living, the space, the houses, the jobs, the people. So let's talk about those things, because that is where I actually know what I'm talking about more than any national study does. I'm going to bring this all the way down to the towns that I live in and sell in. Buford, Braselton, Hoschton, Flowery Branch, Northern Gwinnett County, North Metro Atlanta. Here is the real version. Schools. This is the #1 reason people move to Metro Atlanta, without a doubt. Gwinnett County's district ranks in the top 20 nationally. Buford City Schools are also a powerhouse, and Jefferson City Schools are a huge part of why Jackson County is exploding. If you have kids, the school conversation here is a strength. It's not a compromise. And that never once showed up in the worst states headline. Cost of living is another one. Georgia's genuinely affordable compared to a lot of the country. In a town like Braselton, your cost of living will actually run a few percent below the national average on things like housing and utilities. Even Chick-fil-A is cheaper in Georgia than it is California. And compared to where a lot of my clients are coming from, like California, the Northeast, South Florida, their dollar stretches so much further here, and they are surprised. That is a real quality of life, even if a study won't file it under that label. Taxes. Here's an insider one. Compare Buford in Gwinnett County to Flowery Branch in Hall County. The property tax rates are meaningfully different between the two. On a $500,000 home, that gap can run you several $1,000s a year. A national ranking will never ever tell you that, but it's the kind of thing that you can feel within your monthly budget. Lifestyle too. We have Lake Lanier right here in Gwinnett County, and that's boating, fishing, waterfront dinners, all of it. We've got a European village called Chateau Alon in Braselton, and we've got the Mall of Georgia that's thriving, and every bit of shopping and dining you'd ever need in Buford. And then 15 minutes later, you're on a quiet, tree-lined street with room to breathe. And we're close enough to Atlanta to do all that big city stuff, the aquarium and concerts and football games, without having to live in the middle of it. And a drive up north puts you in the North Georgia mountains, where you'll completely forget about Atlanta altogether. Now, there is a trade-off, so let me be honest about the downsides as much as I am about the good stuff, because that's the whole point of this video. Traffic is real. The interstates around Atlanta, Interstate 85 and 985 are on my side of town. They back up at rush hour and around the holidays, and there's no good way around it. Growth means construction and busier roads, and some of these towns don't feel as sleepy as they did 10 years ago. If what you want is total quiet and zero development, a few of these fast-growing pockets are going to frustrate you, and I'd rather be honest with you and tell you that now than have you find out later. Let's actually answer the question I started with. Is Georgia one of the worst states to live in? By the specific yardstick that one study used, based on a set of state policy measures, Georgia scored low. And if those exact issues are what matter most to you, then take that seriously. But as a description for daily life for most of the families I work with, one of the worst places to live just doesn't match what I see every single day. I see people moving in. I see strong schools, an affordable cost of living, a booming job market, a lake in the backyard, and communities that people are genuinely happy to be a part of. I see one of the fastest growing regions in the whole country. And here's the real takeaway, the same one I come back to with every buyer. No single ranking can tell you whether a place is right for you. A state that's wrong for one family is a dream for another. It's going to come down to your season of life and whether your priorities line up with what that place actually offers. Most people shop for a state the same way that they shop for a house, by the headline, by the finishes, but the right place isn't the one with the best ranking perhaps. It's the one where your life naturally fits. So that's my honest take. I'm not saying the study's a lie. I'm not saying everything's perfect here either. The truth sits right in the middle, and it's a whole lot better than that headline made it sound. If you're thinking about a move up here around Buford, Braselton, Hamilton Mill, anywhere in northern Gwinnett or Jackson or those surrounding counties, and you want the real, unfiltered version of what it's actually like to live here, that's literally what I do. Reach out anytime, no pressure at all. I'm happy just to talk you through it. You can also find me on Instagram at Sarah Selling the Suburbs. If this video was helpful to you, go ahead and subscribe and like this video. I put out honest and local videos like this to help you figure out if this part of Georgia is the right fit for your family. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.